Here's the opening. We have e4, e5, knight f3, attacking this pawn, knight c6, protecting the pawn, bishop b5. That's Roy Lopez. Now black will play the move knight to f6, which targets this pawn, and now we're going to play the anti-Berlin setup with the move d3. Like Giga Chad. Now the most popular move for black in this position is to play the move bishop to c5. The idea is they want to go for attack in the future and they want to castle. Take the knight with your bishop, and after the d pawn takes, now play the move knight to d2. And some of y'all would want to say, hey, this bishop is very strong and it's targeting the f2 square. And
it's time to stop!
So you might want to sacrifice the bishop, but don't do that. Because if you're hoping for king takes and knight g4 and king f1, going for a fork on the queen and king, this unfortunately doesn't work because instead of going king to f1, we have king to e2 and black doesn't have anything for the sacrifice material. After knight bd2, your opponent has to protect his pawn somehow, although you can't actually capture it right now because if you do, let's say black plays a random move, if you take it, you get the move queen to d4. This is always a threat that's lurking in the position, threatening checkmate and attacking the knight, and you can't protect both. And that's why your opponent could play a move like bishop to g4. And bishop to g4 is actually not a great move. And here, white surprisingly scores pretty well. I would recommend you play the move knight to c4. And knight to c4 just adds one more pressure to the pawn onto e5 there. There's three ways that you can protect this pawn. Queen e7.
That's quite big.
But if you play the move queen e7, just simply play knight takes e5, the queen is forced to take, and after knight takes, bishop takes, and king takes here, bishop takes f2, and in this position, you have an amazing center. You can put your rook on a semi-open file here, and you can develop your king to e2, develop your bishop, and this is actually a really good position for you. Decide to defend this pawn with a move like bishop to b6. Well, you just move the same piece twice in the opening, but this is bad also because you can just play the move h3. And after the move h3, black kind of has to decide what they want to do with the bishop. Do they want to capture it and let you develop for free here? And this is a really good position after bishop to g5. Or instead of capturing the bishop, do they just want to maybe go back? But if they do go back, then you have g4, bishop to g6, and now you can just take this pawn here because it's attacked twice and it's defended once. So after h3, the best move for black is to just take the knight and you trade, and you still have the bishop pin here. So that's why the best move in this position is just to play the move knight d7 here, protecting the pawn. And this is the only move that works for black, and it's a slightly awkward looking move because you move backwards to defend this pawn here. Now after knight d7, you have to now play the move bishop to d2. Bishop to d2, the idea is that we want this knight to become like a fly. That it doesn't matter what you do, you can't chase it away. And what I mean by that is, let's say black plays the move b5. And if they play the move b5, then knight a5 will target this c6 pawn here, and it's really hard to defend that pawn. And so there's a forced line here, queen to f6, and they can put double pressure here, but after a move like h3, just forcing them to capture here. If they capture, you capture with the queen, queen takes and queen takes. You can play a move like rook, king to e2, and put the rooks on the g file here, and you're actually doing really well. This is a really good position. And this pawn is hanging. That's why you can't play b5 in this position, and they also can't play the move a5 because it's targeted by 2 pieces. So you can just take with the knight and you're just up a pawn here. So what does that mean? By playing the move bishop to d2, black can't move any of their queenside pawns, which means you can't chase this knight away no matter what you do. So here, one of the most common moves in this position is just black is going to castle here. And after castling, now you can play the move h3. Now, this is a very common theme here. Bishop to g4 is not that good because you can force black to make a couple of decisions. And here, if they go back, again, this pawn will be loose. If your opponent in this position plays bishop to e6, targeting the knight here, you can just play the move knight to a5 here. Remember, always play knight to a5 because it's really annoying for your opponents to deal with. They can't ever chase it away. And after a move like rook b8, you can even just go for this bishop here. And the idea is, after you trade, maybe you want to come back to attack this pawn again. Always go for the bishop pair here. And let's say black plays a move like queen to f6 here, going for a double attack here with on the f2 pawn. You can simply castle. If your opponent tries to kick your knight out with the move like h6, just take the bishop here, and if they take with the pawn, they have a triple pressure on the f file here, and so just make sure to defend this pawn with a move like queen to e2. After the move h3, your opponent's best move is taking the knight, but a lot of your games, your opponents will try to keep this pin and then play bishop to h5, just trying to conserve the bishop. And here, this is where you go for your attack. G4. Bishop to b6, the only move, and now you can even play the move h4. And h4 is a dangerous looking move because you're threatening to trap the bishop. So if black plays a move like h6 in this position, you can even play h5. Bishop is forced to go back, and now you play the move g5 with an attack. Black shouldn't capture here, because if they do, then you have the move knight takes g5, and again, you're threatening a lot of pressure here with the queen and the knight here, so you don't want to do that. So the best move in this position for black is to play the move h5, but this is also not good enough, because after in this position, you can play the move knight to h2. And you might be wondering, doesn't that hang this pawn? And you're right, it does hang the pawn. And let's see what happens if they do take the pawn. We have now queen takes h4 here. It looks like a really scary move because it threatens to capture the f2 pawn with checkmate. So you have to play the move queen to f3, which guards the pawn here. And also, it defends this rook. So if they decide to capture the pawn on g4, then you can take, and you take with the knight, and you have amazing pressure on the h-file, and you're getting ready to castle. Black should just play the move knight to f6, just adding more pressure onto the pawn. But here, this is also not good enough. You can just take the pawn, bishop takes, queen g2, this looks very suspicious for black. Knight g4, putting more pressure, and then here you castle. They go for the fork here, because when they do, you first threaten checkmate. So you get out of the fork, and you threaten checkmate. And the only move for black is to play the move g6. And you might be thinking, you're going to be just down the exchange? Well, no, because you have to move b4 here. b4 attacking the bishop. If they retreat the bishop, let's say bishop to e7 here, then you can win with the move bishop to e1, pinning this bishop here, and you basically win the knight. If they decide to capture your knight your rook onto h1, then you have this variation, takes, and after knight to f2, it might look like the knight is escaping, except that you have to move bishop to g5, attacking the queen, and so the black's best maneuver is to offer a queen trade here. And you take the knight, and this is completely winning for you. Here's how a grandmaster pushes his pawns to victory. We have e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and this is the anti-Berlin. Black plays bishop to c5, we have takes, knight bd2, and here black chooses to castle instead of going for the move bishop to g4, which is also a very common move in the lower elos. So after castling, queen to e2. Nepo's mission is to develop as soon as possible so that he can go for the pawn pushes later. We have rook to e8, and now knight c4, knight to d7, protecting the e5 pawn, and black clearly knows what they're doing. We have bishop to d2, and now knight to b6. And so let's see what happens if you try to take the pawn. So if you try to take the pawn with, let's say, this knight, then black has to move f6. And where do you go from here? This square is covered by the bishop. You can't go here, 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 here. So the only square is to go back. But if you do this, black can trade. You have to take back. And they have this amazing move, bishop to f5. Going for this pawn because it's pinned. And black is winning in this position. Taking the e5 pawn here with the knight is no good. And that's why you have to remember, knight a5 is the solution here. Always play knight a5 when your knight is being attacked so that you can be as annoying as possible. And black plays the move queen to e2, just developing off the back rank. We have a3. And a3 is a strong waiting move. Maybe you want to develop here, and it just creates a lot of tension. So black plays a move, bishop to d6, and now it's time to push. Knight to a4, targeting the b2 pawn, but do we care about that pawn? No, we don't. That's why we play h5 in this position. And now black plays queen to f8, defending the queen side pawns. And now Nepo chooses to defend the b2 pawn here. Although there was this line where he could have just pushed the pawn to h6, and black is pretty much forced to play g6. And now Nepo has this very great position where this pawn is both protected by the bishop and rook, and he can go for take more space on the king side. Knight c4, and now we have to move b5. And this forces Nepo to actually capture the bishop. Black takes, and now we have to move b3, kicking out the knight, and now we have knight to h4. And the idea behind this is that he wants to maneuver to f5. But this also gives black the opportunity to maneuver to f4 himself. Now, queen to f3, and black now tries to kick out the knight. So the knight can have two squares to go. But this video is all about pushing pawns. So can you guess what Nepo played in this position? It's actually the move g3. g3, offering the knight here, and he wants to open up the g-file. So black takes the knight with the bishop, knight takes, black retreats the bishop back, and now we have a king walk to h2. Opening the g-file for the rooks. Now after f6 here, now we have rook g1, rook g3, and rook ag1 here. Now Nepo has amazing pressure on the g-file here, and pretty much in a winning position. Black plays rook to g8, just adding more defenders, and now rook to g2. And the idea behind this is that now Nepo just wants to put the king in a safer position, and now black puts both rooks on the g and h file. Rook to g8, and it's not clear how white continues here, because if you take this pawn, Black will capture back, and you can't take this pawn because it's not going to do anything for you. So you push it, and black can actually close up the position according to Stockfish. So that's why after rook to g8, Nepo plays a waiting move, b4, just doing stuff on the queen side first, and now he plays bishop to e3, bishop to c6, and now we have rook to h2. Now he's getting ready to capture some material. Now black plays the move a6, just a waiting move because they can't do much, and black and white are both maneuvering their pieces until this very moment where queen to e7 is actually a mistake, and now Nepo capitalizes it by taking on e5. He opens the position here, and now he plays the move d4. Black takes, and you can't actually take this pawn, because if you do, black can actually close up the position, and you're forced to play something like rook to g4, and this is an even position here. But instead, when after black takes the d4 pawn, Nepo plays the move bishop to g5. Bishop to g5, adding more pressure to the pawn, and now after rook to f4, adding triple pressure to this f6 pawn. Now we have king to e6, trying to escape, and now check king to d6, and sacrifices another pawn. And you can't take with the f pawn because the queen is pinned, and if you decide to take with the queen, then we have this variation, rook takes d4, the king is forced to go back onto c7, and now we have to move bishop to f4, pinning the queen against the king. So instead, black just runs away immediately, and now we have bishop takes, and this bishop is super strong. It's stopping the mobility of black's rooks, so black decided to take the bishop and block the pawn's path to queening with the queen. Rook takes d4, queen takes f6, and it looks like a trade of pawns. Now, Nepo forces a queen trade, and from here, the rest is history because Nepo's just up in exchange. Nepo just maneuvers his rooks, and in this position, Ho Yifan resigned.